you guys saw this on the news today, but Bill Cosby has finally spoken out about the allegations against him.
For years, Tina Fey was known as the polite professional, the sharp writer, the quiet powerhouse, the woman who never made things personal. She joked with everyone. She worked with everyone. She avoided public feuds. But behind the scenes, there was one man she refused to tolerate. Not because of ego, not because of competition, but because of something far darker. He represented everything she despised about power in Hollywood. Everything she believed was protected, excused, and allowed to rot. And while others stayed silent, Tina Fey didn't. So who was the man she truly hated more than anyone? Why did she draw a line where almost no one else would? Stay with us, because when you hear what this man did, you'll understand exactly why Tina Fey never forgave him. The joke that shocked nobody, but should have. Tina Fey stood on stage at the 2015 Golden Globes. She was trusted, expected, a safe choice to host Hollywood's party. The audience smiled. They wanted gentle ribbing. They wanted to laugh at themselves without consequence. Amy Poehler delivered the line. Sleeping Beauty just thought she was getting coffee with Bill Cosby. The room gasped. Nervous laughter rippled through the Beverly Hilton. Fey followed with a Cosby impression. I put the pills in the people. The people did not want the pills in them. More gasps, more discomfort. Headlines called it shocking, outrageous, burning Cosby alive on live television. But the joke was restrained, network approved, rehearsed in front of NBC executives who signed off without hesitation. This wasn't a rogue comedy. This was calculated truth delivered in the safest possible package.
I don't know if you guys saw this on the news today, but Bill Cosby has finally spoken out about the allegations against him. Cosby admitted to a reporter, "I put the pills in the people! The people did not want the pills in them!"
No, Tina, hey, that's not right. That's not right. It's more like, I got the pills in the bathroom, but I put them in the people!
The moment that changed everything wasn't the joke itself. It was the reaction. They were shocked that someone finally said it out loud, in a room full of power, in front of cameras, with no apology. The joke worked because everyone already knew. The industry had known for decades. More than 24 women had come forward. Accusations stretched back years. Settlements had been paid. Silence had been bought. What crossed the line wasn't the content. It was the refusal to pretend. Fey had been doing this for 10 years. A 2005 Weekend Update bit. A 2009 episode of 30 Rock. She'd referenced the allegations when Cosby was still receiving awards. Still respected. Still called America's dad. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't wait for it to be safe. The media called the Golden Globes joke brave. But bravery implies risk. By 2015, the accusations were public. Hannibal Buress had gone viral months earlier. The dam had already broken. Fey wasn't leading anymore. She was cleaning up. Fey's real courage happened a decade earlier, when Cosby still had power, when saying his name wrong could end careers, when Kenan Thompson joked about loving to work too much to risk it. The question isn't why Tina Fey spoke up. The question is why she was one of the only ones who did it when it actually mattered. Was it courage or just basic decency? And if it was just decency, what does that say about everyone else? The 2015 joke wasn't her first warning, it was her third. And the first one came when Cosby still had the power to end careers. So let's rewind to 2005, a decade before everyone else cared. February 2005. Tina Fey sat behind the Weekend Update desk. A California lawyer had filed a lawsuit alleging Bill Cosby tried to molest her. The story existed. Barely. Most outlets ignored it. Cosby was still beloved, still safe, still America's dad. Fey and Amy Poehler did Cosby impressions, intentionally bad ones. They joked about brain damage, about settlements, about things everyone knew but nobody said. The studio audience laughed, uncomfortably, the kind of laughter that acknowledges truth without wanting to.
California lawyer alleged Wednesday that 30 years ago, Bill Cosby drugged her and tried to molest her. And after she fought back, he dropped $200 bills on a table and fled. Cosby says he can't be held responsible for his actions since at the time he was suffering from the brain damage.
Then Kenan Thompson ran out. He said he didn't say any of that because Kenan Thompson loves to work. The audience laughed harder. They thought it was a punchline. The moment that changed everything wasn't the joke. It was Kenan's fear. He was starring in Fat Albert, Cosby's movie, Cosby's Money, potential sequels on the line. Thompson couldn't risk it. His career depended on staying quiet. Everyone understood. That's how power works. Fey made the joke anyway. She had no Cosby project, no financial tie, but she had something else, a platform. And she used it to say what a courtroom was already alleging, what women had been saying for years. What crossed the line wasn't the accusation, it was naming it on national television. Bill Cosby wasn't just famous in 2005, he was institutional, a comedy legend. The Cosby Show had redefined television. Fat Albert had shaped childhoods. His influence reached into every corner of the industry. Agents knew it. Executives knew it. Comedians knew it. Criticizing Cosby wasn't career suicide. It was worse. It was career irrelevance, being labeled difficult, ungrateful, someone who doesn't understand how this business works. Faye understood perfectly. She just didn't care. The lawsuit she referenced would settle out of court. The allegations would fade from public view. Cosby would continue his career uninterrupted. 4 years later, he'd receive the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. The Kennedy Center would celebrate him. The industry would applaud. Everyone who stayed silent made a choice. It wasn't ignorance. The information existed. A lawsuit had been filed. Faye proved you could talk about it and survive. But survival wasn't the concern. Comfort was. Access was. Not rocking the boat was. Thompson's joke about loving to work wasn't really a joke. It was a confession. The entire industry was making the same calculation. Cosby's power versus their careers. Their comfort versus someone else's trauma. Faye chose differently. Not because she had less to lose, but because she decided the cost of silence was higher. Faye didn't stop. 4 years later, she tried again. But this time, she buried the truth so deep that most people never even noticed it was there, hidden in plain sight on 30 Rock. In 2009, Tina Fey wrote an episode of 30 Rock called The Bubble. Tracy Jordan threatens to quit. Jack Donaghy tries to lure him back. Someone does a Bill Cosby impression on the phone. Standard sitcom setup. Most viewers laughed. Tracy said nonsensical things constantly. Random outbursts were his character. The joke blended in, disappeared into the noise of the show's absurdist humor. That was the point.
He was Dr. Huxtable. He was America's dad. Everybody loved him. I loved him. I wanted him to be my dad.
He asked me back a few times. He asked me to visit him on the set. I was not the only girl that he was doing this with.
Faye had learned from 2005. Direct accusations got attention, got pushback, got labeled as controversy. But bury the truth inside a character's rant? Let people dismiss it as meaningless comedy? It slips through, gets broadcast, gets repeated in syndication. The truth sits there, waiting. The details were specific. A year, a city, an occupation, a physical description. This wasn't vague. This wasn't accidental. This was a pattern Cosby's accusers had described. Young women, service industry workers, drugged, assaulted. That same year, Bill Cosby received the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. The Kennedy Center honored him, gave speeches about his legacy, his contribution to comedy, his role model status. Tina Fey's joke aired on NBC. The same network preparing to celebrate Cosby's lifetime achievement. Nobody connected them. Nobody had to. The joke was designed to be missed. 1 year later, Hannibal Buress joined 30 Rock's writing staff. He didn't write the Cosby joke, wasn't there when it aired, but he saw how Faye operated, watched how she embedded truth in comedy, learned that you could say the quiet part out loud if you framed it right. Faye had been playing the long game, planting seeds, making jokes that would only make sense later, when the truth finally came out. When people looked back and realized the warnings were always there, but the long game required waiting, required victims to keep suffering while the truth hid inside punchlines, required subtlety when the situation demanded clarity. The Mark Twain Prize wouldn't be revoked until 2018, 9 years after Cosby received it, 9 years after Faye's joke aired on the same network that would later honor him. The question isn't whether Faye was clever enough to hide the truth. The question is whether hiding it was enough. Was subtlety strategic or cowardly? And if the truth needs to be buried to be said at all, who does that protect? The answer came 5 years later, from someone who'd watched her playbook. But he didn't bury the truth. He detonated it. The man who finally made people listen. October 2014. Hannibal Buress stood on stage at a comedy club in Philadelphia. He wasn't subtle, wasn't coded, wasn't hiding behind a character or a sitcom bit. He called Cosby a rapist, said it clearly, said Google exists, said the information was already there. Someone filmed it. The video went viral. Within weeks, dozens of women came forward. Networks pulled reruns. A planned NBC sitcom vanished. The comedy tour canceled dates.
My speech was slurred.
And before I knew it, I was with my head over the toilet, throwing up, in a white t-shirt and my panties, and he was looming over me.
Cosby's career collapsed. The moment that changed everything wasn't the accusation, it was who made it. Buress had worked on 30 Rock, joined the writing staff in 2010, a year after Faye's coded Aunt Paulette joke. He didn't write that episode, had no hand in it, but he'd seen her model, watched her embed truth in comedy, learned the terrain. Then he chose a different path. No subtlety, no plausible deniability, just the truth delivered like a hammer. What crossed the line wasn't saying it louder, it was being a man. Tina Fey had said it in 2005, on Weekend Update, on national television. The world shrugged. She said it again in 2009. Coded into a sitcom, the industry ignored it. The Mark Twain Prize was awarded anyway. The celebrations continued. Burrus said it in 2014. The world listened, not because his words were braver, not because his platform was bigger, because he was male. Because when a man calls another man a rapist, it reads as judgment. When a woman does it, it reads as accusation. Accusation can be dismissed. Judgment demands response. The flood came immediately. Women who'd been speaking for decades suddenly had an audience. Barbara Bowman, Joan Tarshish, Janice Dickinson. The names multiplied, the stories matched. Drugging, assault, decades of pattern. Nothing new, just newly heard. That was the point of no return for who gets believed. Faye had been right in 2005, right in 2009, right at the 2015 Golden Globes. But being right didn't matter. Being heard did, and being heard required a man to co-sign the truth. The comedy community celebrated Burrus, called him brave, gave him credit for ending Cosby's career. He deserved recognition. He took the risk, made the choice, said what needed saying. But he wasn't first. He wasn't even close. He was just the one people decided to listen to. Faye never demanded credit, never pointed to her decade of jokes, never said, "I told you so." She just kept working, kept writing, let the record speak for itself. The record said she'd been screaming into the void, and the void had waited for a man's voice to echo back. The question isn't why Hannibal Buress spoke up. The question is why his words mattered more than identical words from a woman 9 years earlier. Was it timing, or was it gender? And if the truth only counts when men say it, what does that cost the women who said it first? The cost became clear when Cosby finally fell, because the industry that ignored Faye for a decade suddenly wanted to pretend they'd been listening all along. The price of being right too early. Cosby's career ended. Shows canceled. Reruns pulled. The Mark Twain Prize revoked in 2018. 9 years after he received it. 9 years after Tina Fey's 30 Rock joke aired on the same network that honored him.
Bill Cosby found guilty. The actor and comedian, once known as America's Dad, found guilty on all charges today. His head down, taking deep breaths after the verdict, then his outburst in court. He was accused of drugging and assaulting a woman at his Philadelphia home. Prosecutors in this retrial were allowed to have 5 other women testify to bolster Andrea Constand's allegations. Many of those accusers breaking down after the verdict.
He was convicted in 2018, sentenced to prison, later released on a technicality, but the fall was complete, the legacy destroyed. America's Dad became a cautionary tale. Faye had been right in 2005. The lawsuit existed. The allegations were public. She said it on national television. The industry kept celebrating him anyway. What crossed the line wasn't being wrong about Cosby. It was being right too early. Being right too early means nobody celebrates you, nobody credits you. You don't get called brave until everyone else catches up. And by then, it's not bravery anymore. It's just history. The comedy community failed, not because they didn't know, because they chose comfort over truth, chose access over accountability, chose their careers over someone else's trauma. Whistleblowers targeting untouchable figures get ignored, then vindicated, then forgotten. The pattern repeats. Weinstein, Cosby. Every industry has them. Every industry has people who spoke up early, and every industry waited until it was safe to listen. That was the point of no return for what we call courage. The question isn't whether Tina Fey deserves recognition. The question is whether recognition matters when the warnings were ignored for a decade. Was speaking up enough, or should she have burned bridges to force people to listen? That question doesn't have a clean answer, but it reveals something uglier about the industry that stayed silent, and about what it takes to be heard when power protects predators. Tina Fey spoke up when it mattered, when Cosby still had power, when careers were at stake. She was right for a decade before anyone cared. The industry didn't fail because they didn't know. They failed because they chose comfort over truth. And that choice has a cost. It always does.